where do I even begin with this one? Well, I suppose I'll start by bringing up a certain interesting comment I received on my previous review. The commenter opined that last week's episode was ultimately worthwhile despite my criticisms because it would appeal to the target demographic, i.e. children. A few things on that. One, even if it's true, that doesn't mean I'm not going to have my own thoughts about the episode. Two, that it has a cross-generational appeal, it's something that can be equally enjoyed by children and adults, is one of the main things that set MLP apart and made us all care in the first place. 3. The kids are still going to like the actually good episodes. There's no reason for episodes that just appeal to kids when they are for the most part already going to love the same episodes we do. And 4. Sure, it has wacky go-kart action and a cute song and stuff, but no, the cart before the ponies isn't going to especially appeal to kids, it's just not very fun. The older characters are off-putting and the younger characters are pretty much just sad the whole episode. I honestly don't think a child's experience watching it would be that far removed from my own. But when we look at this week's episode, 28 Pranks Later, I will acknowledge that this time that might not be the case. I genuinely think this episode could be very entertaining for a child. I mean, I kinda know this. I have a friend with a young daughter, and apparently she was all about showing off her cookie zombie impression after the episode. And I can definitely understand why that is. The episode is built on simple, easy to understand conceits, and it plays around with zombie movie tropes in a silly, not too scary, safe for all ages way. I also know a lot of people who are bigger horror movie fans than I am, who found a lot to appreciate not just in the premise, but in how the zombie scenes were done, apparently paying homage to a lot of classic horror reveals. And I'm not here to take any of that away from anyone. I know this episode is particularly divisive, and that there are in fact a lot of people out there who really do find something to enjoy with it, and they're entitled to feel that way. But all that said, I'm here to tell you what I thought of the episode, and yeah, I thought this episode was bad. Remarkably bad. One of the worst in the entire series. Watching it, I could not wait for it to be over, I loathed it so much. Not since It Ain't Easy Being Breezy's have I had this poor reaction to an episode of this show. It genuinely made me angry, which isn't really that easy to do. But I'm going to try and approach this from a rational angle and explain to you the many factors which contribute to my hatred. The episode is really a sort of follow-up to Season 1's Griffin the Brush-Off. Well, another one, this time revisiting Rainbow and Pinky the Prankmasters as opposed to Gilda. The problem is that the episode doesn't build on what came before it. Instead, it's an obvious backward slide. Griffin the Brush-Off is one of my favorite early Season 1 episodes. It's in fact the one that really hooked me on the show the first time I watched Season 1. And it's for a number of reasons, including me really liking Gilda for her design and general attitude despite her rather cringy dialogue, and it showing for once that Pinkie Pie was an actual character with some semblance of depth to her and not just a vaguely obnoxious comic relief. One of the main reasons I really liked the episode, however, is that it surprised me, and not just with its well set up but not immediately obvious twist ending, but rather with how it treated the idea of pranking. It was something fun, something for Rainbow Dash and Pinky to bond over, something even Twilight got in on at the end. Now maybe there's something to a Carb's conclusion regarding the episode.
I mean, what kind of idiotic writers tells children that it's okay to be continuously playing pranks on everyone? We're raising a generation of assholes, that's what we're doing.
But it was nevertheless unexpected and refreshing to see in this day and age where risks aren't always taken and everything can be labeled as imitable behavior, a show actually encouraging some lighthearted fun, while still making it clear that you should make strides to be mindful of others' feelings. In that regard, the new episode is simply put exactly what Griffin the Brush-Off was subversive for not being. It covers the same territory, but its approach is exactly opposite, not to mention so much more obvious. And considering that, it's also just unnecessary. Its entire message was literally covered much better in this one brief sequence.
Who are we gonna squirt? Fluttershy. What? No. We can't prank Fluttershy. I mean, she's so sensitive. It'll hurt her feelings, even our most harmless prank. Yeah, you're right.
In that scene, Rainbow Dash is prepared to prank Fluttershy, but she hears what Pinkie Pie says and acknowledges that she is right, that there is a difference between pulling fun pranks and just being a cruel jerk. Then we meet Gilda, who doesn't recognize this distinction and in fact shows no regards for the feelings of others. In the end, it's Rainbow Dash who, in seeing Gilda's cruelty for what it is, rejects her. 28 Pranks is comparatively muddled in its approach to the issue. Some pranks are fun, but Rainbow's pranks are bad, so let's prank Rainbow so she can see pranks are bad. And all this really brings me to the next big problem, the character assassination it performs on Rainbow Dash. That after what we saw in Griffin the Brush-Off with the scene I just played, we would open this episode with Rainbow Dash just pranking Fluttershy anyway, is a slap across the face. If what Pinkie told her there didn't in fact sink in, if she's still okay with outright cruelty, what was it that had her tell off Gilda in the first place? I know there are people out there who have this impression of Rainbow Dash as some kind of self-absorbed jerk who doesn't learn anything, but I'm sorry, no. She can get wrapped up in herself and is prone to acting without thinking, but she at the very least knows that there are consequences to her actions, and that potentially hurting others for her own benefit is bad. If she didn't, then why did Wonderbolt's Academy happen the way it did? Fact is, while Rainbow was often shown to be the less than sensitive one in earlier seasons, that really isn't something we see so much these days. Rainbow as she is now is much more mature than she was in Season 1. She's thoughtful and considerate of others, especially her friends who she clearly cares about on a deep level. We see it in how she talks to Scootaloo in Flight to the Finish, her utter selflessness in Rarity Investigates when she puts finding Spitfire ahead of getting the chance to fly for herself, and just in how genuinely sorry she can get when she does do something she recognizes as wrong. How far removed what we see in the episode is from where I feel Rainbow Dash should be just lends to this sense that F.M. DeMarco, the new writer for the episode, doesn't have a respect for or connection to the characters. It's pretty clear, I think, that everything from the episode started from wanting to do the zombie thing. Since they couldn't have real zombies, zombie prank was the next best thing, so episode about pranks is what they ran with. But you can't just force characters with 6 seasons of development into whatever story you want and expect it to fit. It just doesn't work. And it's not just Rainbow Dash who suggests that DeMarco doesn't know these characters well. Applejack is most often portrayed as a pillar of comfort and support for Fluttershy. We see it in Dragonshy where she alone has patience for her, and in other places where Fluttershy is frightened or upset. Her flippantly remarking that scaring Fluttershy is lazy just feels bizarre. Also, it's a small thing that likely only I noticed or cared about, but Rarity should not be calling Dash Dash. She either calls her by her full name, or just Rainbow, or very occasionally Dashy, or well darling or dear as she does everyone. Getting that wrong, it's not a big deal, but it does show that this is someone who doesn't have the best grasp on how these characters should be talking to each other. Then there's the Philly Guide thing. Sure, it's adorable to see the CMC in Girl Scout uniforms, but am I the only one who felt this entire thing was remarkably contrived? These characters we know and have known for 6 seasons are just now all of a sudden part of this organization that we've never heard of or seen any evidence of until now? I'm sorry, but you can't just do that. The episode does not exist in a vacuum. It's got to line up with what we've seen before, and it just doesn't. But they really wanted their silly zombie premise, so let's talk about that now. I'm no huge enthusiast, but I do like the occasional zombie movie, and the one this episode is named after is in fact one of my favorites. I get the appeal. It just doesn't pan out for me. I appreciate a good bit of silliness, but for me, cookie-crazed Rainbow Mouse zombie ponies just cross the line into the stupid. Some of the reveal scenes were kind of funny still, I guess, particularly the baby cakes, but it just grew tired quickly and left me not really sure what to feel. Is this supposed to be scary or disturbing? Is it supposed to be funny? I really don't know. All it ends up being is irritating, especially since pretty much anyone watching is going to know right away that this is a prank. Speaking of which, let's talk about that now. People are comparing this episode to the Mysterious Ne'er-do-well, and I don't think that's entirely fair. To the Mysterious Ne'er-do-well. I do get the similarity. In both episodes, Rainbow's friends decide that they are right and Rainbow is wrong and try to proactively teach her a lesson by pulling off some convoluted secret plot behind her back. The difference? Well, in Ne'er-do-well, though that awful scene in the middle makes them look like hypocrites considering it, the plan, as they state it, is to provide a positive example to Rainbow as someone who still does good things, but doesn't go around bragging about it. Sure, it instead ends up massively triggering Rainbow's inferiority complex, leaving her at an absolute low, which perhaps they should have anticipated, but that was not the intent of their plan. It was all about showing Dash how she could be better. Here, though, there's really no other way to look at this than them deciding to give her a taste of her own medicine. Rainbow was a jerk to us, so let's be an even bigger jerk to her to show her how big of a jerk she was. And sorry, but that's not really the sort of message you want to see for this kind of thing. And don't try and argue that what the others did was harmless. It's really outright cruel. Because of the nature of the G-rated cookie zombies, none of the fear they are trying to invoke in Rainbow is for her own safety and well-being. They're not going to eat her or anything. The terror of the situation instead is one of loss, isolation, and guilt, that her friends have forever become mindless zombies and it's all her fault. And as I pointed out many times before, Rainbow really thinks very highly of her friends. They are everything to her. Ne'er-do-well destroyed her self-confidence for a while, but this is just going to haunt her. But Rainbow needed a wake-up call, right? Maybe, but doesn't this seem a bit extreme? Especially given you can't even say that they made their problems with what Dash was doing particularly clear. Pinky's attempt to talk to her was vague and just full of mixed signals. And as for the initial intervention scene, well, I already made a point of how Applejack calling pranking Fluttershy lazy was out of character, but it also sends the wrong message. And they're all guilty of that kind of thing. You need more effort, Rainbow Dash. You need to make everyone laugh. Think about what you're saying here. You're not encouraging her to stop, you're encouraging her to pull bigger and bolder pranks. It's hard to see the 5 of them as being in the right in the episode when their dumb, poorly thought out attempts to defuse the situation instead clearly are what escalated it in the first place. And I mean really, Rainbow's pranks, some of them are actually okay. Joke shortcut or not, that whoopee cushion was well timed and while certainly not original, it used to be we were celebrating the tried and true prank classics in this show. The Spike prank meanwhile is great, a little too reminiscent of the prank on him from Griffin the Brush-Off. The prank on Rarity 2 is entirely harmless fun, though it does raise the question of how, considering professional quality, realistically detailed cake art seems a bit too far removed from Rainbow's skill set. Sure, the pranks on Mr. Cake and Cranky are indeed plainly cruel, but it hurts things when we're supposed to think Rainbow's wrong, yet a significant portion of her pranks are actually pretty good and funny, and don't cause lasting harm. Instead, it just makes us wonder how the residents of Ponyville became so less able to take a joke across the past 5 seasons. Which yes, I can give this episode some credit insofar as there were parts here and there which were funny or otherwise amusing. As I said, I can understand why children and some adult fans might enjoy this. What I see though is something far removed from the show I love. Something that doesn't care about the characters or what has come before, that is just using them to an end so we can have a certain situation and teach an obvious moral that was already handled in a much more interesting way 5 seasons ago. It's unpleasant and infuriating, and it's the new low point of Season 6. With this review now done, I never want to watch it again. I sincerely hope that the next episode and anything else in the future we might see from this new writer will be better. This has been a RarityDash review, thanks for watching and see you soon.